To expand the conversation, we're joined by Director and Chief Economist at Econometrics, Dr. Azar Jammine. A very good evening to you, Dr. Jammine. Thank you for your time. 9.8 million households in South Africa benefit from social grants. What does this tell us about the country's current status?
It basically tells us that a very high proportion of the population are without work and are basically kept alive by the government through cash payouts every month. This is not a very healthy situation, and there is a big debate going on as to whether or not one should have these social grants in place, which don't exist in the rest of Africa anywhere near to the same extent. There is a view that says that the moment that people get cash payouts for doing nothing, they have little incentive to actually really try and work and look for work and become more productive.
With that view in mind, the reality on the ground is that South Africa's official unemployment rate currently stands at 32.9%. What options need to be explored there? Because a lot of what we're hearing is that South Africa has good economic policies, but failure at implementation stage.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, at the heart of the problem is that three fundamental weaknesses or legacies of apartheid that were negative have not really been addressed in the last 31 years of democracy. The first is that educational levels, if anything, have deteriorated, not in terms of the number of people getting through education, but the quality of education has deteriorated, so that a high proportion of students leave school and really cannot add value in a manner that will attract employers to want to employ them, and therefore they sit without income. The second big negative that hasn't been properly addressed is spatial inequalities. Under the Group Areas Act in the apartheid era, a lot of people lived far away from where they worked, and that is very costly for them to have to find transport to go to work and also to look for work. And also it's inimical to the creation of small business activity close to where they live. And that is the third big weakness that has not been addressed, and that is the relative paucity or lack of resilience and robustness of small business activity in South Africa. The economy is dominated by government that imposes very heavy regulations on small business development. Secondly, trade unions that are very powerful and are really an obstruction to young people finding jobs. Is partly because of what they do and partly because of the labor legislation that exists. And thirdly, the relative absence of small business activity, a vibrant small business sector that you find in so many other emerging markets. South Africa's economy is dominated by big businesses and financial institutions, and the small business is very tough to get going and cannot get the finance to do so, and is also hamstrung by the fact that big businesses and government and other people for whom small businesses work don't pay them on time, and these poor businesses lack the cash flow to survive in many instances.
So what kind of opportunities, I mean, with all those challenges really adding to the current economic dynamics that South Africa is facing, what kind of opportunities do you think that come November the G20 summit could present?
I would love to see some skills transfer from some of the countries in the G20, and especially in the technological arena. And the source of our problems in South Africa is the fact that so few students actually qualify with a decent mathematics pass rate at school to actually equip them to compete and to offer and to add value in an environment that is becoming increasingly technologically sophisticated. People are so that you get a handful of people who go to private schools or Model C schools that are getting very well educated, extremely well educated by international standards, and are able to hold this economy together. But the majority of people are left out of the mainstream of the economy as a consequence, because their schooling outcomes are relatively of such poor quality.
Very well. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. Director and Chief Economist at Econometrics, Dr. Azar Jammine.